It's appalling. It's a sad day for our democracy. And, Congress put that law in place. So if we thought that it needed to be changed, Congress should be the one to change it, not a court trying to change it on their own. I do think that this is judicial overreach and is a sad day for our country. We need to make sure that we are upholding the incredible accomplishments of the Voting Rights Act. We need to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act to continue to move forward and continue to make sure we have fair representation all across the country. But let's be clear, they know what they want to do. Republicans are losing. They're losing across the country. So they want to rig the system so they have a chance of winning. Now, they could actually listen to people and maybe find out that their policies are not popular and try to win over the hearts and minds of the American people. But instead, they're trying to change maps. And that's why you see them trying to respond so aggressively. And frankly, why you saw, even in the Supreme Court, that such a strong dissent from the three judges who had the dissenting opinion, because they really were attacking the fundamental premise of the Voting Rights Act and, of course, of Section 2.
Well, and in addition to state-based VRAs, the legislation that bears John Lewis's name, it's also forced Democrats into the position of considering what it is going to look like to go on offense. This is some new reporting from Politico. Some Democrats in the immediate aftermath of the Calais ruling raised the possibility of diluting majority-minority districts to help draw more seats favoring Democrats, even in states like California, where the party already stands to gain up to 5 seats after voters approved a new congressional map last fall. Diluting majority-minority districts is still complicated, as you well know. I wonder, can you tell us what the conversations are that are happening inside your caucus about the pros and the cons of such an approach?
Well, let's look at where we're at first today, because when Trump asked Texas to give him 5 more seats and they said, yes, sir, they drew a map that did not go to the people. They drew a map and put it in place. And they should be careful what they ask for, because we actually have opportunities to pick up seats, even with their new map in Texas. But in California, in the response, the people got the chance to have a say. The people voted and felt very strongly that they wanted to make sure they stood up for fair representation and not let a state like Texas take away their representation in Congress. You saw the same for the people of Virginia, stand up and vote. You're going to see states across the country, and definitely blue states, respond to Republicans' attempts to take away all of our rights by trying to lock in a permanent Republican majority. Folks are going to stand up. And I think it's been a clear through line all along that we have gone to the people and the people have voted. You notice Republicans are not talking about ever going to the people. The governor of Tennessee didn't say they were going to ask voters if they wanted to change their maps. They are pushing forward. And frankly, people across the country hate this.
Congresswoman, just a few days ago, it feels like, I think it was last week, when Virginia voters passed their map and said, yes, please go ahead and do this. You had Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, the man who leads your chamber. He was aghast. He couldn't believe that Democrats would do something like this. But I want you to listen to what he said on Thursday after the Supreme Court ruling.
The Supreme Court said that in Louisiana's case, it was blatantly unconstitutional. And I think that principle applies probably in other states as well. We want constitutional maps. I don't think that's a controversial notion. And I think all states who have unconstitutional maps should look at that very carefully. And I think they should do it before the midterm.
The speaker is a very smart man. I think he knows that the controversial notion has nothing to do with people not wanting constitutional maps. Everyone wants that, right? That's running in Congress, possibly. The controversial notion is that at the end of the day, Republicans are being kind of as cynical as you can be when it comes to this. They have decided that Black and brown voters can't be convinced that their policies that, Speaker Mike Johnson and people like, John Thune in South Dakota in the Senate, that they can't convince voters, Black and brown voters. And so instead, they're going to draw them out. They're going to make it much more difficult. What can Democrats do at this point? Because we know that Hakeem Jeffries has said, everyone else draw maps, everyone go out and do it. At some point, everyone's going to run out of juice. But Democrats were feeling really good, and they were feeling like they had a lot of wind at their back. How much of the wind does this take out of the sails as Democrats try to take back the House and Senate in November?
Well, first of all, remember, in special elections that we have seen since November of 2024, Democrats are running ahead by double digits. So take a Republican seat where a Republican might have won by 10 points. We're seeing huge swings in state legislative seats. You saw the seat in Florida, the legislative seat where Mar-a-Lago is located, and that was over a 30-point swing in a very short period of time. It's because people have soured on the Republican agenda. People are struggling. Prices are skyrocketing. Housing, food, healthcare, childcare, energy costs, gas prices, all skyrocketing directly because of actions of this administration. So it's no surprise that people across the country are rejecting Republicans. We've seen that in special elections. So they redraw these maps thinking they're going to pick up seats. They actually give us opportunities. And we have great candidates who want to run, who feel a patriotic calling to run, folks who are veterans and farmers, mayors, ministers, small business owners who have stand up to run across the country. And, to Mike Johnson's comments, if he cares about, the law, then maybe he'd look, for example, in Florida, where they're trying to change the maps. The people of Florida said they cannot do a political gerrymander, or very clear, and yet I didn't hear him say anything about the attempts of Ron DeSantis to ignore the people of Florida, ignore the amendment they put in place, and they're still trying to redraw maps. So I don't think he's been consistent at all. And we should also remind everyone that the Supreme Court actually upheld new maps in Alabama and in Louisiana just 2 years ago. So how come they changed their mind now?
Congressman, one last point. I know we got to go. The future for this effort is in every state legislature in the country, because they are the ones that draw the maps. So the reality is the Congress members don't draw their seats. The state legislature do. You want to change who draws the seats? Change the people who draw the seats.